The 2025 NFL season is right around the corner. Training camp starts this weekend. That means it's time to lock in those bets and let's see how this season's going to play out. We're going to start with the NFC North division preview. We're talking best bets, win total, what this team's going to look like, wins, losses. We got a lot to break down. So let's get to it. Welcome, football fans, to another edition of IDP Plus Bets. What is up, folks? I am your host, the Degen Doc, but more importantly, I am joined by my brother in degeneracy, Mr. Derek Bennett, aka Professor Docs. How we doing tonight, brother?
Not too bad. This is whenever we start doing these division previews is when I know football is right around the corner, which is just a tremendous feeling.
It's amazing. Football's back. I mean,
hey, cheers to football.
Cheers to football. Yes. I mean, we were talking about it, but the NFL training camp, the Chargers in the Hall of Fame game, they're bringing rookies in Saturday. We're recording this Thursday night, July 10th. We're 2 days away from, real pads, real hitting. I just can't believe that football is actually here. We've been waiting for it so long.
Yeah.
And it's time to start these division previews like we talked about. But before we do that, want to catch up, had some things. It's been a while since we've been on the bet side talking bets and
right.
kind of getting to do this together. But obviously, tragic news with the Texas floods and everything going on.
No doubt.
I wanted to highlight and bring attention to a certain individual here who, look, this is an awful, terrible situation. But, I think a lot of times social media and things like that can highlight a lot of the bad. But I think it's time, we show a little bit of the heroes and some people that did some good and brought a situation. So I want to bring a little attention to Coast Guard rescue swimmer Scott Ruskamp. Essentially, he was in the area. His unit got the mission. Hey, go help out. He helped to save 165 lives in these Texas floods. He was triaging folks, setting who needs to go where, coordinating with the helicopters. That's awesome, right? I mean, we're talking about a tragic situation.
Yep.
Worst day for a lot of those people's lives, but he made 165 families, lives immensely better in that moment by stepping up. And what I really like here, other than obviously awesome thing to do, is his response. They have basically asked him, how did you do this? This is such a heroic thing. And he really was just kind of like, this is my duty. This is what I signed up for. And he said, any rescue swimmer, flight mechanic, any other member of the, basically Coast Guard uniform services that was in this position would do exactly what I did. And I was just doing my job and whatever. So, that is really, really awesome response. Really respect their, duty and honor. And I just wanted to give a cheers to Scott and the heroes that are helping out with the Texas floods in that awful situation. So cheers to you, Scott, and all those other heroes out there.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, we are gonna switch gears here.
That's way too much my face. There we go.
You don't like to be the star of the show?
I do not like to be the center of attention whatsoever.
Yes. So we're gonna switch gears here and talk a little bit NFL. And as we talk NFL, we had a little bit of news. We had the 4th of July.
Yep. Great holiday. But we gotta be responsible on the 4th of July with some things like, obviously it's not football season. We don't have our bodies completely prepped, so we have to watch potentially how much we're drinking. But with the 4th, a lot of times explosives come into play as well.
They is very true. And as our friend Jason Pierre-Paul, JPP, has showed us in the past, it's, injuries can happen.
They can.
We got some rumors over the weekend that a certain player was involved in some incidents. There was a lot of rumors that there was incidents talking about maybe, blowing off an eye. So that player was Los Angeles Chargers' new running back, Najee Harris, and it has been
Ooh.
reported that he is going to line up week 1 of the NFL season like this. Will be
Nick Fury style. I love
yeah,
it.
we are a little bit over exaggerating. There was rumors that his eye was blown off and everything crazy, and everyone jump on Amara in Hampton. This is a great opportunity for fantasy, which really kind of messed up that you immediately go there like, oh, this
Yeah,
guy's eye's
right,
blown out. Let's go get his backup.
right.
But it's a superficial injury per his agent. Again, we'll have to see him out there, but he's
Yep,
basically got nicked up. Probably a very
yep.
scary situation. Probably a lot of questions there,
But
but
probably could have gone a lot worse than it did.
absolutely could have. But it seems like he's going to be okay and good to go.
Yeah.
So they said for week 1, he'll definitely be a full go. So that is good news. Hopefully that's a reminder to us all to, not Smokey the Bear forest fires, but protect yourself.
Mhm.
Who fireworks? Who's the mascot there? Is it should just be JPP with this,
It
7 and
really
a half
should.
finger.
It really should. Just JPP looking.
Yeah, I think we got to figure something
Claw
out
hand.
there. Maybe
Yeah.
NIL is not for the NFL, but they've got to get somebody to do it.
No doubt.
All right, enough messing around. Let's get into this. We are talking about today the NFC North preview. Very excited.
Woo!
This is our first division preview. So the way that this is going to work, we did some of these last year on our old channel with the Degen Docs, but now we are here with IDP Plus, and we are revamping this division series. The way this is going to work, we're going to break down one division at a time. That means we're going to have 8 of these episodes, and we're going to go team by team. We're going to be talking major losses, major additions, big takeaways. What was the record last year? And then we're going to end it up with our best bets, about 1 to 3 of these bets per team. Derek's going to give some out. I'm going to give some out. And we're going to
Yep,
talk football because it is
yep.
right around the corner. Any major takeaways from the NFC North kind of big picture before we dive into these teams?
So I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
According to last year, we
Right.
had 3 teams that were pretty damn good.
Okay.
Is the NFC North going to be the best division in football this year?
Is the NFC North going to be the best division in football? What, they had 3 playoff teams. They had
Yep.
3 teams with double-digit wins. Are they going to be the best in football? No. They're going to be
Okay.
good, but
Okay.
I think the AFC North is
Ooh.
actually might take the cake there. Another
Okay.
pretty solid division with
Yeah.
almost 3 teams in the playoffs. Not quite. But I think it will be. I think it will be close.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit. Uh, I think it'll be actually close. That's a very
I
fair
I
question.
think I think the because last year, 2 of these teams basically had the top 2 records in the NFC, in the
Okay.
Vikings and the
Right.
Lions.
Right. Right.
The Bears were still down towards the bottom. I think that kind of evens out a little bit. I don't know if, the top will be as dominant as they were last year, but I think the Bears have caught up a little bit, and obviously, we'll talk a little bit more about some of these.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Absolutely.
But
So
I think it's like you said, I think it's going to be one of the top divisions. I don't know if it'll be as dominant as it was last year.
yeah. That's you got me thinking. That was a really good question. So I will see, but I am excited. I do think this is going to be very well. And the first team up here on our 2025 NFL division previews is the former number 1 seed for the NFC, who had their
Mhm.
season end in disappointment. The Detroit Lions, coming on at 15-2 last year. We'll
Yep.
go through some of these losses first. Let's first talk Kevin Zeitler, offensive
Yep.
guard, now a Tennessee Titan. Frank Ragnow retiring. Zadarius Smith is gone. John Kaminsky's retiring, and Carlton Davis and Efidu Melifonwu is both been kind of moving on. Davis with the Pats and Melifonwu with the Dolphins there.
Yep.
What are you thinking now? Takeaways from the losses. What concerns do we have here?
I think the biggest concerns for me is over the last couple of years, the Lions have had one of the best offensive lines in the league. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to be bad by any means, because I mean, you still have Sewell there on the right side. I'm not thinking of the left tackle's name right off the top of my head, but
Decker,
the
right?
center,
Decker.
Taylor Decker, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But the interior part of that offensive line takes a massive hit, losing
Right.
Zeitler and Ragnow, obviously retiring. I mean, Ragnow, that's an all pro center that
Right.
all of a sudden you're bringing 2-year-old Glass now that has he's a serviceable guy, but you're definitely losing a lot when it comes to that interior.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's that interior line is changed over. Talking about some of those replacements there, they went out and drafted the rookie out of Georgia, offensive guard Tate Rutledge.
Right.
They have Christian Mahogany is going to play the other guard, a former Boston College, really high prospect, but kind of dealt with a lot of injuries. And then
Yep.
Graham Glass now is going to take over at center there. So, a lot of change over there. Some of these other additions, I think in the third round, they went and got the wide receiver out of Arkansas, I believe, Isaac Tesla,
Tesla. Yep.
Tyleek Williams, their defensive tackle, brought in, Cunningham at linebacker, and then 3 cornerbacks, Maddox, Reed, and Rock Sin, all kind
Mm-hmm.
of a little bit of journeyman guys. It looks like Reed is projected to get the start there, but they've got some questions in the secondary there as far as, when we
For sure.
talk about where this team was limited last year, it was squarely the defense, and the
Yep.
secondary the past 2 years have really been a bit of a concern. Now, some of that is due to injury and injury luck and really
Oh
misfortune
yeah. Oh
as
yeah.
far as the injuries, but still, I mean, I think there's still some obvious questions in the secondary with all that turnover and having to rely on some young guys there.
Yep.
Um, what are your so I think one thing we have to talk about when we talk about the Lions here is the loss of Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn.
Yeah. For
Um,
sure.
I mean, this is both coordinators. You're coming off a great season, 15-2, where it was very disappointing way to end the season with that kind of blowout loss, really, to the Commandos.
Yeah.
Now we have, we're moving on to a new regime. You still have Dan Campbell there to bite everyone's kneecap off, but a lot of people said, he's the hoorah rah caveman, and these guys were more of the kind of the tactical
The
geniuses.
nuts and bolts. Yeah.
Right? So how is this going to look? And then we kind of talked about the defense there.
Yeah.
What's your overall takeaway? Any other different takeaways you have for these Detroit Lions?
I don't think a ton. I think it'll be interesting to see that. Obviously, the health on the defensive side of things. I mean, they lost a historic number of players last year
Hmm.
throughout the season, and a few of those came back for the last couple of games. But at the same time, like when you're missing an Aiden Hutchinson for the better half of the season, like your defense is going to struggle a little bit.
Right.
But like you said, I mean, going into last year, we thought that their defensive secondary was going to take a little bit of a step forward, bringing in Carlton Davis, and it just didn't necessarily work out just because of all of the injuries that they had throughout the season.
Right.
Avonte Maddox, DJ Reed, those are very serviceable pieces. Like you said, they've kind of bopped around a little bit, but not too long ago, they were pretty damn good corners. So will
Yeah.
they be able to fill in that role and make that defense as good as kind of what we were expecting last
Yeah.
year?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that, yeah, the defense is a question mark for me and the interior offensive line now. So let's talk some injuries real quick. We'll talk
Yep.
some big injuries as we always like to do for every team here.
Yeah.
Got a small one at first, but a huge player,
Yep.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Sun God himself. He had an offseason knee scope. Looks like near the beginning of the offseason. So he's expected to be good to go by training camp. So more of one to monitor. No real concerns yet, but
For
I mean,
sure.
anytime anyone has a surgery, you want to make sure they're looking like they're back to where they were. The
Yep.
expectation is that he will be, but again, with the surgery, it's something to note.
Definitely.
getting to some more bigger injuries here. Defensive end Marcus Davenport, who was a bit of a disappointment, and he's kind of been a disappointment his last few stops, especially with the injuries. He had a
Right.
triceps tear, complete triceps tear, back in September. When we talk about a triceps tear, what are we typically expecting? How long are they supposed to be out? And what's his outlook for next season?
Yeah, I mean, tricep, obviously the major muscle on the backside of your arm, especially for defensive ends, linemen in general. Like, they're doing all of the pushing and shoving up front most of the
Right.
time. So it's a major injury when it comes to uh, comes to the interior. Now, the good thing for him is this is usually like a 4 to 6 month recovery timeline. This happened in September, so he has plenty of time to get this strengthened back up and rehabbed and everything. So it's one of those things that any major injury like that, you got to be cautious,
Right.
and kind of, you know, expect to take a few weeks, the first quarter of the season to kind of get back into the swing of things. But I think in general, I don't necessarily think that he's going to miss a ton of time, if any at all, going into
Good.
the season.
Yeah, yeah. No, I absolutely agree there. Yeah, so major injury definitely sucks during the season, pretty much season-ending injury.
Yep.
But as far as for next season, he should be good to go. It happened early. Another guy who had a big injury early, linebacker Derek Barnes, MCL and a PCL tear.
Yep.
The ACL was spared, which we typically don't see with multi-ligament injuries, but he
Yep.
got lucky there. So typically about a 9 to 12 month recovery. He's got 11 and a half months. So I do expect him to be available and to play early on, but he's going to probably be a little bit rusty in those
Yep.
first few weeks, first half of the season. What are you thinking there for Derek Barnes?
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go with basically everything that you said. I think it's more of a rust that has to
It's a
get
good
knocked
place to
off
be.
with Derek Barnes. And not always, but
I was gonna say, man,
um,
don't ask for the wife, but yeah, I
that's
think it's a
right.
pretty good place to be.
That's right. But no, I think you're right. I mean, when you miss an entire season, like, it's gonna take a few weeks to get back to the swing of things, and that's probably where Derek Barnes is gonna be.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean they are relying on him. He is going to be a starting linebacker. The other guy who plays, not quite a starter but rotational
Yep.
piece, Malcolm Rodriguez, also coming off an ACL injury. So,
Yep.
yeah, they're going to have to, Barnes is going to have to be ready to step it up, and I think that's going to be a little difficult early on. Let's talk a little bit of fantasy.
Yeah.
Yes, folks, you get a
Cool.
little bit of everything in this episode. We really do a comprehensive look at each team. Any major fantasy takeaways for you regarding this Detroit Lions team?
I mean, going into the season, the main guys are still going to be absolute studs. When we're
Hmm.
talking Jameer Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown, you talked about him a little bit ago. Those guys should still be at the top of your draft order, if you
Right.
will, first couple rounds. The one guy that I will be watching over the next couple of months is Sam Laporta and how they're using him, because his rookie season, he absolutely crushed it, jumped on the screen in a major way.
Right.
Last year, they kind of changed his role from more of a receiving tight end to more of a blocking in line tight end a lot more.
Hmm.
So from a fantasy perspective, we're not big fans of that, right? We want him to be out wide and want him to be going out in passing situations, and be one of Jared Goff's main guys to throw to. So going into last season, I think he was the number one tight end off most people's boards. He didn't live up to that just because of
Right.
that kind of change in how he was used. And now bringing in the new OC, it'll be interesting to see where he actually fits into that offense.
Yeah, no, I think that's my one guy I've got questions with. I mean, look, 60 catches, 726 yards, and 7 touchdowns isn't terrible,
Yeah.
but he was being drafted so high
Hmm.
because of those expectations coming off the rookie year.
Right.
And there is reason to kind of have a little bit of pause now that we saw some regression, and now it's a new system. What are we going to expect? So I do have a little bit of hesitation taking him, top five as far as tight ends. I think
Sure.
that some of those other guys, I'd rather have, a Kittle, a Bowers, a McBride, a Hawkinson for me.
Yep.
So he's probably at the
Yep.
bottom of that kind of tier there.
I would agree. He's
So
kind of fringe tier 1, probably more tier 2 kind of a thing.
right, yeah, I think he's kind of right around either 5, 6. Even if 7, I wouldn't totally, see that case. But
Yep.
again, like you were talking about, coming into last year, he was someone that everybody wanted, right away, and I think we need to press the brakes a little bit there for Laporta.
Yep.
All right, let's get to the fun stuff, and that is the betting, how we actually make some money
Do it.
here. I'm going to go through win totals and some futures here, just prices. I will say shop around. I was shopping around at 4 of the major books there, and you will get a wide variety. But for the most part, win total sitting at 10.5. A little bit, over, you're getting either plus 110, plus 100 where you're looking. Under,
Yep.
minus 130, minus 120. You've got make playoffs right around minus 185, miss playoffs at plus 150, 155. Backwards. Make playoffs for the Lions to make the playoffs, it's minus 185 ish. Miss playoffs is plus 150, plus 155.
Yep.
Division to win the NFC North, they're sitting around plus 155, plus even as low as plus 135, depending on what
Yeah.
book you're at. To win the NFC, plus 550 to plus 400, and Super Bowl typically around a 10-1 range.
Okay.
So obviously one of the favorites in the NFC.
Yep.
They were just coming off a 15-2 season. They were the number 1 seed last year, although very underperforming in the playoffs. Any of those futures, you're looking to take anything win total? What are you doing anything with them for those bets there?
I am of those. I would say, or I'm taking the over on their win total.
So
I
you
think they're
want over
still.
10.5?
I still think they're going to be a double-digit win team. I don't think they're going to repeat the 15 wins that they had last year. I see them being a 12-win team probably, because they're in general they didn't have a ton of changeover. Obviously, like we talked about, offensive line, a little bit in the defensive backfield, but I think all of their main guys are still there when it comes to just their stars. And Aiden Hutchinson coming back from his injury, I expect him to be a full go. Jameer Gibbs, you still have
Montgomery,
And St. Brown and Williams and
mhm.
all of the main major players that we always hear about. My one concern would be obviously the coordinator changes,
Right.
but I think with the star power that they have on that team, they're still a double digit team win. So I would take the over
Yeah.
in that case.
If I was gonna take one of the win total, I think that's where I would kind of be a little bit lean towards there. I'm ultimately gonna stay away from any of their stuff because I think there is enough change over the offensive line, the interior
Sure.
offensive line. You mentioned the coordinators. I don't feel great about it. I definitely, definitely not going to really be taking the under because I agree. I don't. I definitely think they could be easily, an 11-win team and above. But a lot went right. A lot kind of broke right for them last season with getting those wins. Especially, I mean, they won a game where Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions. So I am going to say
I would also play devil's advocate and say they had like 15 defensive players injured last year.
they
I
did.
don't expect
They
that
did.
to happen again.
I will say the more you say it, the more I may come around to it. Ultimately, for the official play, though, I am going to stay off them just 'cause I like a couple in this division a little bit more.
Okay.
Let's get to our best bets part of this. For the
Do it.
Detroit Lions, I will kick us off here with why best bet for the Detroit Lions. And they're both revolved around the one guy, and
Okay.
that is Mr. David Montgomery.
Ooh, okay.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
David Montgomery, he's been in the league for 6 years.
Yep.
How many times has he rushed for under 750 yards?
I'll go 1.
0. He has
Really?
never missed that number. He is
Okay.
6 to that number. However, over at our friends at Bet365, He is
Yep.
plus 160 to have 750 or more rushing yards this season.
Really?
So I will be taking David Montgomery, 750 plus yards at plus 160, again over at Bet 365. And then I will also be taking David Montgomery, 10 plus touchdowns. 2 years in Detroit, he's had 13 and 12 touchdowns. And I was only playing 14 games in both of those years. And
Yep.
yes, both those years he went over 750 yards. So look, Jameer Gibbs is great. Jameer Gibbs is awesome, but it's Sonic and Knuckles. And I think David Montgomery is going to continue to be a productive guy that's going to be slept on. I think we're getting some really good numbers here. So give me David Montgomery again, 750 plus rush yards at plus 160 and 10 plus rush touchdowns at plus 100 for my best bets for the Detroit Lions. What
Okay.
say you, my friend?
Yeah. Give me the guy that you just talked about in terms of Sonic, and give me Jameer Gibbs over 1,075 and a half rushing yards at minus 110. He ran for over 1,400 yards a year ago. I think his rookie year, he was like around 970, 980, missed 2 or 3 games that season. But it seemed like the couple weeks that David Montgomery went down, I can't remember what type of injury it was.
Yeah.
They really started to lean on Jameer Gibbs a lot more. I expect him to have a very full workload. And just with the explosivity that he has, as long as he stays healthy, I think he absolutely blows over this number without any questions.
Yeah.
And then my second one is Jared Goff's over 28 and a half passing touchdowns at minus 110. So Jared Goff, I believe, finished, I can't remember. Yeah.
What?
So last year he had 37 touchdowns. The
Jeez,
year
he
before
blew it out
that,
of the water.
30. The year before that, 29. So he hasn't missed this the past 3 years.
Right. Yeah.
And I think as far as the Lions go, they do keep things fairly balanced between both of their running backs and the passing game. So I think Jared Goff flies over, again, that 28 and a half passing touchdown.
Yeah, no, I like it. And don't get me wrong, me being pro Montgomery is not being anti Gibbs. I really think that, look, the year before last, they were both 1,000-yard rushers. Like, I think that offense can
Yep.
sustain them. I think they need each other to kind of stay healthy, stay fresh.
Yep.
So I very much like Gibbs, and I like your Goff angle there. So no, I do really like both those bets there. All right, my friend. Anything else for these Detroit Lions? Are you ready to move on?
I might have a little bit here in the future, but for now, I'm good.
All right. So we are going to be moving on to the next team here. But before we do that, I got to tell you about some of our awesome sponsors here at IDP Plus Bets. First up, we're talking about none other than Mr. Bob Lung's Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. Get a leg up on your opponents with Bog's 10th annual edition of the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide for 2025. Purchase yours for a measly $15 on Amazon. Just search 2025 Fantasy Football Consistency Guide. All right, folks, we are now moving on to the Green Bay Packers. That is right. We're talking about the Green Bay Packers in this 2025 NFL season. And we are talking everything from losses, additions, takeaways, major injuries. What are our concerns? And ultimately, what bets are we going to be making on this team here? So let's go for a deep dive to these Green Bay Packers here. Start with their losses, as we always do. Who is leaving them and moving on to maybe greener pastures, maybe not. Some notable names here. AJ Dillon kind of was a non-factor, obviously last season.
Yep.
He left kind of early or during the season, I think. Big defensive tackle TJ Slayton is now at the Bengals. Linebacker Eric Wilson is with the division rival Minnesota Vikings. And then this is where we really kind of get to the bread and butter here. Jair Alexander is now a Baltimore Raven. Eric Stokes is now a Las Vegas Raider. And cornerback Corey Ballantyne is now an Indianapolis Colts. A lot of changeover really in that cornerback room.
Yep.
They did bring in Nate Hobbs, but how are you feeling about these cornerbacks going into this 2025 NFL season there for the Green Bay Packers?
I don't think they're going to be as bad as people think. Mostly
Okay.
because Jair Alexander has been on and off the field a lot over the last couple of years, and some of the
Right.
guys that are basically filling roles now have had a fair amount of playing time as it is. So the guys that are most likely going to be starting at corner is Carrington Valentine and Keyshawn Nixon, and then
Mhm.
Isaiah McDuffie will be in the slot. Nickel will be Nate Hobbs, who they brought in this year. Um, a couple of these guys, like I said, have gotten a good amount of playing time over the last couple of years when Jair Alexander has been dealing with injuries or just being a knucklehead himself. Now, when he is on the field, he's one of the best cornerbacks in the league, but I think he's by far the biggest loss for the Packers. Other than
Right.
that, there's not a ton of turnover up there in Green Bay.
Yeah, look, I mean, yeah, Zaire Alexander and Stokes are definitely more talented, in my opinion, or at least Stokes came in as a high draft pick and he had more
Yep.
potential. Didn't really pan out, but I don't know, man. Relying on Carrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon, and Nate Hobbs, I do like their safeties there. Look, Keyshawn Nixon is a great return man. If you're in the IDP streets, he's great because
Yep.
he would get those return yards and everything like that. So he's a fun player there. I just don't like. We're all right. Let's talk about some of these wide receivers: Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Jordan
Yeah.
Addison, Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore. Like, I don't know if I'm ready to put any of those guys on an island with any of the top guys. Now, I do like
Yeah.
their safeties: Evan Williams, Xavier McKinney. As much as it hurts me to say as a Giants fan, Xavier McKinney had a great year, and Evan Williams is a young, nice player for that. I like
Yep.
their linebackers and their D line, but I do have questions on their cornerbacks. Going over to the offense, let's kind of switch gears here. Let's
Yep.
talk about these wide receivers. They brought in Mecole Hardman, Matthew Golden from the draft, and TCU wide receiver Savion Williams. They also did bring in Aaron Banks, which I think was a nice addition to the offensive line, which was already pretty good.
Yep.
What the hell is going on with this wide receiver room?
Well,
What what,
they
what are we doing?
basically yeah, they've basically brought in like 6 wide receiver 2/3s.
Right,
I
right.
don't know if they have a wide receiver 1 on the team. Now, Matthew Golden could be that guy, but he's more of a slot dude.
Yeah, I don't.
So,
They don't have a
I
big body wide receiver.
yeah, I don't know what is up with the Packers, like, just loving, like, 5'10" wide receivers, but yeah, I guess I just don't know. They just have guys that they can just rotate in every other play.
Yeah. I mean, look, Christian Watson was kind of their bigger wide receiver. He has a torn ACL. He tore his
Yeah.
ACL on January 5th.
Yep.
There is a good chance he misses the entire season next year.
Yep.
He's definitely going to be on the pup. Definitely going to,
Especially with his history of leg injuries as a
right.
whole. Last year we were talking about his hamstrings
Hamstrings.
being, 50% strength compared to the other side or whatever it was.
Yeah, that was awful. Yeah, and the Packers. Yeah, we can trust
Their
their
medical
recovery
staff.
room. We're talking about their they have the speed push bench press was their
Yes.
thing. They had like 4 pec tears. Yeah, I don't know if the Packers injury unit.
Including, like, an offensive coordinator or something.
It was before
Oh,
himself.
was it LaFleur? Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, these Green Bay Packers. I do appreciate how they drafted a wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah.
Now that Rodgers being gone, so but look, coming in at 11-6 last season, they still are swearing up to be a nice team. I think this is where our big question is: is Jordan Love the guy? Obviously, if you
Yeah.
ask Packer fans, I'm sure they would say yes and yada
Sure.
yada. But I'm asking you: would you want Jordan Love to be your quarterback 1 on your team?
Well, as a Steelers fan, hell yeah. But, um, it's a massive question, I mean, going back 2 years, the first year that he started, he struggled the first half, and then he caught fire in the second half of the season. Last year, I think it was MCL, meniscus, something like that in the first game against the Eagles. And he
Yeah,
just
I think it
he
was
didn't
MCL.
he didn't it he didn't really ever come back from that. It seemed like, he never caught his footing after that. It just seemed like, um I think he had another nagging injury or two. I don't know if he missed more time, but he just never really got going last year. And I think it's just one of those things that I don't know if it was necessarily that injury that he was just trying to play through the entire year, but it seemed like it. And it just, he never looked like the Jordan Love that we saw 2 years ago in the second half of the season. I think he could still be that guy. But the question's out there.
Yeah. I will say I'm a little bit more pessimistic here.
Yeah.
As far as the question of is Jordan Love elite, I'm going to say no. Is he a top 10 quarterback in the league? I'm going to say no. He's not too far behind. He's probably somewhere in that 10 to 15 range.
Yeah.
However, when we think about, this team, they were 11-6. But let's be honest. I mean, for 2-3 weeks, Malik Willis came in there and looked like the best he's seen, and he was undefeated as a starter.
Sure.
So how much does Love really, I think that's kind of why I think this team's going to still be a good team, but I think they're going to be limited by two things, in my opinion, and it's the quarterback and it's the cornerback room. I think those are the two limiting factors on this team. Again, we'll kind of talk win total and stuff like that. I'm not really looking to outwardly fade this team because I do think LaFleur is a good coach. I think their defense is coming around. I think their offensive line is good, and I think Josh Jacobs can be a workhorse. And they've got guys in Tucker Kraft, and they can make some things happen. But this is definitely kind of, I think this team really does have a ceiling, kind of like last year of like, hey, maybe we'll make the playoffs, but first, second round exit for me is kind of what I see there. But let's talk. We talked major injury because they only really have one, Christian Watson. He's going to be likely out for at least most of the season, if not all. Otherwise, they're pretty healthy coming in, which is always a good sign. Fantasy takeaways. What are we thinking here? Fantasy wise, any big takeaways for this team?
I would say, going back to your question about Jordan Love, like, is he elite? Probably not. He's probably in that 10 to 15 range, like you said, which means that this offense is gonna have to, and it will run through Josh Jacobs. I think Josh Jacobs, ADP wise, I'm not exactly sure where he's going, but you're going to get some pretty good value.
I'm going to say later than he should.
Yeah, he's going a lot later than he should. He's just a dude that is on the field all the time, and he's just a workhorse. He's like a Derrick Henry to the point where he's not a huge threat out of the backfield receiving wise, but he's going to bowl some people over. And I think that's exactly where the Packers need him to be, as far as their 15 wide receiver twos and Jordan Love, like, they're going to be okay in the passing game, but Josh Jacobs really helped take them to the next level this past season in the rushing game.
Yeah, he's going around RB 10, 9, 8 there.
Yeah.
I'd be hard pressed to find definitely 10 better running backs fantasy wise than Josh Jacobs, especially given
you're getting a lot of value with Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I mean, he's a workhorse, and he's shown the ability to do that not only in Green Bay last year, where he had a phenomenal year, but also with the Raiders back in the day. I mean, so he had 300 carries, 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns there for the Raiders. So I do like Jacobs. The other guy I'm going to target here is Tucker Kraft. I think he could be set up for a big year here. We talked about, hey, wide receiver, what's it going to look like? I think it's a little bit tough. I mean, Jaden Reed was the kind of, I guess, wide receiver one by yardage and touchdowns, but the guy with the most touchdowns on the team receiving market was Tucker Kraft. 50 catches, 70 targets, 770
He's the
yards.
only guy over 6 foot in the room.
Yes, maybe taking out Christian Watson. You might be right there.
Healthy guy over 6 foot.
Right. Yeah, I think Savion Williams is a big boy, but what's that going to look like? So I like Tucker Kraft. I like Josh Jacobs there. I definitely have to agree with you. Those are the two guys I would probably be targeting, think have a little bit value. All right, let's talk bets. Let's talk the fun stuff. Let's talk money. Win total for this team 9.5. Over again a little bit variable. I've seen it -110, -120, +105.
Yep.
Under the other way, a little bit more. Again, kind of variable. But 9.5 is kind of around where they're sitting at the win total. Make playoffs sitting around -112 to -135. Miss playoffs, I've seen as good as +110 or -108. To win the division, right around +260, +250. To win the NFC, right around 11-1, and then to win the Super Bowl, about 22 to 20-1, depending on what book you look at there.
Yep.
We'll start there. Anything you like as far as win total or futures for this team?
Why don't you answer that question first?
Yeah, look, this is gonna be one where I am not looking to play a win total or future. I think they're right around that 9.5 kind of mark, right? If they won 9 games, I wouldn't be shocked. If they won
Yep.
10 or 11, I would not be shocked. Like I think this is a very similar team to last year.
Mhm.
The cornerback room kind of looked like this last year with Stokes and Jair Alexander kind of having those injuries. Now, if
Yep.
those guys go down, we could be in a real world of hurt there for
Right.
Green Bay.
Yep.
But I think that Jordan Love, I think he's good. I don't think he's kind of good enough to push them to like really contend for that number one or kind of. I don't even really think they're going to be. Well, they'll be in the conversation to win the division, but it's not a price that I like enough. So I think this is right around a 9 or a 10 win team. So for me, I'm going to kind of stay put there on the win total in the futures. What say
Okay.
you?
So the win total is 9.5. I'll
Mhm.
I'll one up you, and I think they're over 10.5 at +155.
Okay.
Based on the 4 teams in this division, they had the least amount of turnover, player wise as
Correct.
well as coordinator wise, um, in this division. And I think in general, over the past couple of seasons, the Packers have been playoff teams. And,
Right.
I think it's going to take at least 10 wins to make the playoffs in most years. So, yeah, give me the 10.5 at +155. I think in general, like I said, to start this show, I think the top of this division is going to come down. I think the bottom of this division is going to come up just a little bit. They finished with 11 wins. I see them finishing with 11 or 12 wins again this year.
Yeah. No, look, I don't hate it. I like your point about the least turnover, right? I mean, we talked to, look, Detroit Lions and their coaching issue or coaching changes and roster.
Yep.
The Vikings have a ton of roster change. The Bears have a ton of roster change and coaching change. So yeah, I think your point about consistency is a fair point. Like I said, I could see anything from 11-9 would definitely be like that would make sense for me. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
like
and
it being
and
up
to
a
your
little
to your
bit.
earlier point, I think, if Jordan Love goes down, Malik Willis didn't look bad last year. And, from a cornerback perspective, they
He
kind of had the same guys playing. So it's
right,
like our major questions, like they're major questions for a reason, but they're kind of the same questions we had last year.
right. Yeah, no, I like that. I like that. All right. So my best bets for the Packers going to the player side of things.
Yeah.
Two guys we kind of talked about when we talked about fantasy. We'll start with Mr. Tucker Craft, 5+ receiving touchdowns at +100 and over 600.5 receiving yards at -110. Both of those over at DraftKings there. Kraft, rookie season came in used sparingly, 31 catches, 355 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Last season, we saw him, really kind of take a step forward, 50 catches, 700 yards, 7 touchdowns.
Yep.
Uh, you know, beat these pretty easily last year. I just don't see a reason why we would see any type of regression. I think he's going to have a better year, but I think he's at least going to get over 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. We talked about, hey, when you're running a lot of slot wide receivers, yes, Josh Jacobs is definitely going to be a battering ram and get probably the bulk of those touchdowns. But you got to have a big target in the red zone when we're talking about the pass. They create things for him. They ran a lot of like slip screens and tight end screens and different plays for Tucker Craft
Yep.
to get him the ball, especially in the red zone. So I definitely like both those plays there. I probably like the touchdown a little bit more because you're getting a little bit
Yep.
of plus money there.
Agreed.
The other guy I'm going to go with is Josh Jacobs, another guy we talked about here, and I'm going to specifically target his rushing touchdowns.
Okay.
First off, we're going to start with the first easy one, over 9.5 touchdowns. Look, Josh Jacobs, again, he is that workhorse mentality. That is what he brings. Question for you.
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs had 15 touchdowns, so he beat this by 6 touchdowns last year.
Okay.
What do you think the leader in the NFL had in rushing touchdowns last year?
I'm going to say 17.
16. There was like
Ah,
3 guys. It was like Gibbs, Derrick Henry, and I think Jonathan Taylor. Maybe I don't know
okay.
who the last one was, but 16 only. So you're
Hmm.
telling me that Josh Jacobs was only one off the NFL lead for rushing touchdowns, and his price to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns this year, 20-1.
Whoo!
I mean, look,
I may have to jump on that one.
all he has to do is have about as good of a year or a little bit better, and he's right
Yeah.
there. I mean,
Yeah.
he's right there, right? So, I like you talked about, we expect this team to look very similar. Offensive line, honestly, with Aaron Banks, I think might have had a little bit of an upgrade.
Yep.
They still have Jordan Morgan, who they draft. So I think they're going to be a run first team. They're going to be a run first team. I don't think they're going to be slinging it all over the yard. They're going to have a good defense, and when they
Yep.
get in the red zone, I don't think Jordan Love is going to take away from anything like that. We talked about they're not going to be throwing up a lot of like deep balls to Mike Evans and stuff like that. So Josh
Mhm.
Jacobs is kind of going to be the guy in Baltimore with kind of like Derrick Henry, but you don't have Lamar to compete with, right? So
Yep. Yep.
I really liked. I just thought that price did not match what he did last year, what this offense is capable of. So yep, I like Josh Jacobs over 9.5 rush touchdowns at -110, but I really like at lead the NFL in rush touchdowns at 20 to
20-1.
1 there. Again, had 15
Good
last year,
pull.
16. All
Yeah,
right,
I
what
like
do you
that.
got?
So, like I said, I like the Packers going into this year. I took their over 10.5 wins. I do like the Lions in this division to also have a pretty good year. I would take their over 10.5 wins.
Right.
So the Packers was at +155. If I pair the Packers and the Lions to finish 1-2, it doesn't matter order wise, in the division, you can get it at +240.
Oh,
And I'm all over that. Like
so
I
not
said,
even an exacta, just
it's not
top
an
2 teams.
exacta, just top
Top 2
2,
teams. Okay.
Packers,
That's 240.
Lions at +240.
Huh? I don't hate that. I mean, I'll talk about why I'll go in a little bit different direction, but I definitely do not hate that. You got
Okay.
anything else for these Packers?
Yeah, I think there's a reason why you have been talking a lot about Tucker Kraft and Josh Jacobs. I'm going to switch over to Jordan Love, and we're going to just stay away from all wide receiver props because who knows which of the 27 wide receivers is actually going to, perform. But Jordan Love's over 25.5 passing touchdowns at -110. He had 25 last year. The year before that, he had 32.
Hmm.
Obviously, the 2-3 years he was in the league before that, he was backing up Aaron Rodgers. But I mentioned last year, it just seemed like he never caught his footing.
Right.
And I
Missed a couple
think
games.
exactly. I think this is kind of the third year is when I tend to get the the most information from quarterbacks on, hey, are they continuing to ascend, or are they, top half of the league guys, or are they just never gonna get there?
Right.
And I think Jordan Love with the team around him, I think he's gonna have a year where he's not gonna lead the league in passing yards or touchdowns, but it's gonna be better than last year
Yeah.
because I think just overall consistency of guys that he has in the room. They brought in Matthew Golden to help him out. Um, I think that he will continue to take a next step. Will he take 4 or 5 and be the league MVP? I don't think so, but I
Right.
think that he's going to be at least as good as he was last year, if not, push for that 30 touchdown mark.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, it's a little bit counterproductive to my Josh Jacobs play, but he's got to get at least 5 to Tucker Craft.
Hey,
He gets
hey, they got to
Kraft.
score a lot to win at least 11, 12 games. So I
No,
like all of the above.
Yeah, look, I think that, like, I mean, he had 25 last year and he missed a couple games, right?
Yep.
I think that's a pretty low number to be set at. I know they have to price in
Yes.
injury a little bit for these guys, but he's not really someone who runs a ton. So
Yep.
from that perspective, I think the injury risk is a little bit lower. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think over 25 and a half is very doable for this type of offense there. So all right, that is it for the Green Bay Packers there for their 2025 season outlook. We are going to move on, but before we do that, we are going to talk about another sponsor here, and that is idpplus.com. That's right. You want to head on over to idpplus.com. We've got tons of subscriptions and memberships. You're going to want to get your subscription so you can join the subscribers only Discord. We also have exclusive content just for subscribers. So there's tons of deals out there. So head on over to idpplus.com right now and see, well, maybe wait until the episode's done. But then head on over to IDP Plus and .com and check those out. All right. We are talking about the Minnesota Vikings now. We are talking about these Minnesota Vikings in the season of 2025, NFL 2025, right around the corner. And we are going to look at these, take a deep dive. We're going to continue on with our NFC North deep dive with these Minnesota Vikings. We're going to look at who they've lost, who they brought in, what did they look like last year, and more importantly, what are they going to look like this year, and how can we make some money off it, whether in fantasy or in the betting markets. So these Minnesota Vikings, they had a shit ton of losses and additions. As you can very much tell, a lot going on here with the Vikings.
Full line change with the Vikings.
Yes, full line change, as they say in hockey. I will pick out some to talk about. I tried to, typically I try to make sure it's only people that are relevant. I mean, a lot of these guys were kind of relevant, but look, Sam Darnold is now in Seattle. Cam Akers is in New Orleans. Cam Robinson and Ed Ingram both went to Houston to beef up their line. Dalton Reisner, their center, is now at the Pats. They lost basically their entire offensive line. D-line, Jonathan Bullard is gone. Stephon Gilmore is gone. Shaquille Griffin's back with the Seahawks.
Yep.
Fabian Monroe is gone. And Cameron Bynum is now in Indianapolis Colts. So a lot of their secondary and a lot of their offensive line. Now, talking about who they brought in, Jordan Mason came over in a trade to back up Aaron Jones. You've got Rondell Moore. They've drafted rookie Ty Felton out of Maryland. And this is where the offensive line change comes in. They brought in Donovan Jackson from Ohio State through the draft. They traded for both Ryan Kelly and Will Fries they brought in Will Fries and Ryan Kelly in free agency from the Colts there. Jonathan Allen from a former Commander now in the Minnesota, as well as Javon Hargrave. And then cornerbacks, Jeff Okudah, Isaiah Rodgers, and Dallas Turner is now brought in from the NFL draft. So that was a mouthful. That was a lot to digest. Break it down for the people. What are we looking at here with these massive changes for the Minnesota Vikings?
This is one of the strangest rosters in the league, to be honest with you. Because like you mentioned, I mean, they had a pretty damn good offensive line last year. Got rid of everybody. Including Christian Darrisaw, who's one of the best tackles in the league, but he's coming off an ACL tear. Obviously Sam Darnold was not pumpkin for the vast majority of the season until the last couple of games. And then you have a ton of replacements in the secondary. I mean, you still have Harrison Smith there, but he's a year older. It's just one of those things that when you lose a guy like Stephon Gilmore and you try to replace him with Jeff Okudah, like kind of like you were saying earlier, I mean, there are wide receiver weapons and pass threat weapons all throughout this division. Yeah, the Vikings, I don't know what to think about the Vikings, to be honest with you.
It is a lot. I mean, it's a lot to digest. It's one of those, it just adds another variable. As far as the offensive line goes, Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, they were good players in the Colts, but they both dealt with injuries concerns. I mean, Fries.
Yep.
Let's talk about some of these injuries now that we're talking about this.
Yeah.
You mentioned Christian Darrisaw coming off both an ACL and an MCL
Yep.
tear, a
Yep.
multi-ligament knee injury, significant, injured in October 24th, late October. It's about 11 to 12 month recovery. He's
Yep.
going to be coming in, with about 10 months or so of recovery. So look, he's probably going to play because these offensive linemen typically try to play through a lot of this stuff. But
Yep.
I think he's going to be a bit rusty and struggle. I mean, you're talking about the blindside protector, and yeah, he is one of the better ones in the league.
Yep.
He's a damn good offensive lineman, but
For
this is a
sure.
significant injury. What are
Yeah.
you thinking about Aerosol?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's a damn good offensive lineman, but between the injury and then just the turnover in that unit as a whole, I mean, offensive lines, you can't just like piece those together. I mean,
Right.
a lot of times it takes weeks for them to start to gel and become that, formidable unit up front protecting JJ McCarthy, who we haven't even talked about coming into his rookie year. So, Darisaw is a stud, but I definitely have some questions, the first 4, 6, 8 weeks of the season.
And yeah, I mean, to that point, like, how much is he going to be able to be a full go, or has he been a full go just with his rehab? Right. I
Yeah.
mean, again, this
Oh,
is a
yeah.
major injury. So even if he gets out there week one, I don't think he's going to have a ton of time with live bullets with these guys.
Right.
Definitely not doing any preseason or anything like that. So,
Exactly.
that's another component. Talking about another guy in Will Fries, he had a brutal right tibia fracture, pretty gnarly injury. Was air casted and kind of had to have a basically emergency surgery.
Right.
What are we looking at there? Typically about 4 to 6 months for a tibial fracture. We know there's a lot of variability based on how that bone broke and kind of complications there,
For
but it
sure.
sounds like for the most part it wasn't anything too catastrophic. But
Yep.
what are we thinking about Fries there as he comes back?
So tibia fracture, the tibia is the lower bone in your leg that holds the majority of your body weight. I mean, you have another smaller bone, the fibula, that is just kind of there, but the tibia really takes on 90% of your body weight. And especially when we're talking about an offensive guard, like that's a hell of a lot of weight to put on there. But
Don't body
time is
shame
on his
anybody on this show.
yeah, that's right. But time is on his side though. I mean, the injury happened back in October. This is a 4 to 6 month recovery kind of a thing. And with bones, they're either healed or they're not, kind of a
Right.
thing. After that, you just got to gain that strength that you've lost because you probably haven't been able to put the weight through that leg for a good 6 to 8 weeks that you would normally be putting through it. So, like I said, time is on his side. I expect him to give it a go week one, but again, how much time is he going to get in terms of gelling with that offensive line? He's on a completely new team. Um, so like you said, he's a pretty good offensive lineman, but there are definitely some question marks coming into the season.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And then last thing we'll talk about, because we'll just hit this injury as well. We talked about the cornerback turnover, obviously losing a lot of guys in that secondary there. One
Yep.
of the guys they're expecting to kind of be the starter with all those guys gone is cornerback Mekhi Blackman, former
Yep.
USC cornerback. He was going into his second year last year. There was a lot of hype around him as far as stepping up and kind of taking that next step. Coming off a promising, a couple starts his rookie season. He tore his ACL almost a year ago today, July 24th, 2024. So in kind of early on in training camp for the Vikings there, he tore his ACL. So he's going to have a little bit over a year to recover, which is good. The more time you have, especially being over 12 months there, he's going to have around a 13, maybe 13 and a half.
Yep.
That's still tough year one off an ACL, especially for
Yep.
a guy who has to cover some skill guys.
No doubt.
I think he's going to play, but I think there's going to be some rust there kind of early on. Where are you at with Mekhi Blackman?
100%. I think there's going to be rust. You don't get better playing football. You're famous for saying that, but by not playing football. But like you just mentioned, the major difference to me between Mekhi Blackman's ACL tear and Christian Darisaw's ACL and MCL tear is just position. ACLs really help to stabilize the knee when we're cutting back and forth and help to really keep that tibia underneath
Right.
the thigh bone. So when you're an AC or when you're a cornerback, yes, you're moving a lot more, but you're also reacting. You're not necessarily knowing exactly when you're going to have to plant that foot to cut and pivot into a different direction. So, when it comes to his rehab, there's a lot more going on than a guy like Darisaw, and I think it a lot of times takes these guys a good year and a half, 2 years to fully feel like they can trust their knee to begin with. So that first half of the year, he's still working in that stage.
Yeah. Now, look, I mean, that's three key guys we talked about, three starters, Darisaw and Fries in the offensive line, and then cornerback Blackman. Three guys they're relying on, and three guys coming back from major injuries. So,
Yep.
definitely it's something we need to kind of consider here with all these key injuries and the roster turnover. And look, they were 14-3 last year, very much a surprise team.
Yep.
But that quarterback is gone. And look, Sam Darnold, despite what you may think about him, he had a damn good year. Now we have basically a rookie quarterback in JJ McCarthy. And I think that's a huge piece of this. Not only, all these guys coming in and all these guys coming off injury, what's the quarterback room going to look like, but what's the quarterback room going to look like with JJ McCarthy? I mean, he's a guy
Yeah.
who was taken, I think, a bit higher than he should have been. I think he was still pretty raw coming out of college. I think he could have used another year at Michigan. And he got no time. I mean, he had a meniscus tear, which ultimately needed a repair and was out for the season in
Yep.
the preseason. So I think he got like one game or something like that in the preseason. Like
Yep.
he really got no live bullets, and now you're rolling him out there to essentially be your quarterback I'm going to call him a rookie.
Sure.
How concerned are you about that for this team?
Minorly concerned, and the main thing is I think they have a little bit more hype coming into this season than they did last year, going 14-3. But you still have OKC as head coach and basically offensive coordinator of that team. You still have one of the best weapon groups in the NFL when you talk about Hawkinson and Jefferson and Addison and all of those guys.
Right.
JJ McCarthy has weapons to throw to. Will he be able to get them the ball, and will he have time to get them the ball? Is my major questions.
Yeah, I didn't know you were such a big basketball guy there. You got OKC on the mind. I think you were talking about KOC there.
That's
Quarterback
one
twister, Kevin
one of
O'Connell.
those. Yeah,
It's
KOT.
it's still preseason, off season for us too. It's okay.
That's right.
But look, talking about those guys, he has some pass catchers. Talk about some fantasy football takeaways.
Yep.
I think it's TJ Hawkinson's season, man. We did our if you want rankings and fantasy football, all that stuff, IDP plus. We talked about all that over there. Very big on TJ Hawkinson this year. Year two,
Yep.
coming off the ACL plus injury. That's typically where we want to see these guys return to these pre-injury levels.
And he returned at the end of the last season and played pretty damn well. So he surprised me as well as he played.
Yep, I was surprised with how he's moving. Now he has a guy who's basically a rookie quarterback, and rookie quarterbacks need safety valves, and that's the tight end. So, all right, let's talk about, you look 14-3 last year, now with a win total of just 8.5. Used to the over, though, about minus 150, minus 145, plus 125, all the way up to plus 130, going the other way. Make playoffs around minus 110, 106. Miss playoffs, I've seen minus 114, minus 110. To win the division, the NFC North, all the way, very variable. One book's got plus 270 over at FanDuel. Bet365 has plus 400 for the Vikings. To win the NFC East, anywhere from 10 or NFC conference, anywhere from 10 to 14 to 1, and then Super Bowl anywhere from 21 to 30 to 1 over on DraftKings, if that's kind of your fancy there. So a lot of variability with this team because I think this is one of the most variable teams in the league. It's all this turnover. So that being said, where are you at, whether it's win total or futures? Are you looking at any of these for the Minnesota Vikings?
I am not touching win totals or division or NFC or any of that. I'm not touching any of it.
Okay. All right. Well, then I will talk about the win total because I'm going under 8.5 wins. This is as good as plus 130 over on ESPN Bet. And I'll do you one better. I'm also going to do an alternate under 6.5 wins at plus 360 over at FanDuel.
Think they'll
I
fully
like
collapse.
I like my alt unders, especially
You
if I
do.
think a team's going to underperform coming off, last season or with some expectations there. It worked out for Jacksonville and San Francisco last year for me. I just think it's a team that's got a wide variability, and I'm tending to skew more towards this not being such a good season for the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings, man, they got everything and they asked for out of Sam Darnold. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle with JJ McCarthy. And I really don't think it's going to be entirely his fault. We talked about the offensive line. You're talking about one, changing up that chemistry. You're bringing in a rookie. You're bringing in two people from free agency. And you
Yep.
have two major cogs in that offensive line coming back from significant injuries. I think that's going to be tough. They're going to struggle a little bit right away. And then you talk about that defense. And I do like their D line. I like their linebackers. But man, that secondary gives me pause. Isaiah Rodgers, Josh Metellus, Harrison Smith, Mekhi Blackman, Byron Murphy Jr. I like Byron Murphy Jr. I liked Harrison Smith maybe 5 years ago. I don't think he's completely washed, but I think he's a bit past his prime there.
Definitely.
Man, that secondary gives me concern, especially with Mekhi Blackman coming off the ACL tear. They're in a league where you got Jamison Williams, you've got Amon Ra, you've got DJ Moore, you've got Luther Burton, Roma Dunze. You've got your 16 slot wide receivers for the Green Bay Packers over there.
Yep.
I'm worried about them being able to cover cornerback and quarterback rooms and guys coming off injury. So those give me some concern enough where I think they're going to struggle in a good division. I think they're
Yep.
going to beat up in division. I think they're going to kind of be one of these teams that kind of falls back down to earth a little bit. So give me the under 8.5 and then give me the under 6.5 in case the wheels really fall off for this team.
All right. Well, going back to, I forgot that you cover the make playoffs, miss playoffs, those kind of things. So I will take the Vikings to miss the playoffs this upcoming season at -110, and I'll
Right.
do you one better. I did this a little bit differently, but give me the Packers to make the playoffs, Vikings to miss the playoffs at +170
Yeah.
as well.
A
So I
little
think the
correlated
Packers,
play.
yeah, I think the Packers take a little bit of a step forward. The Vikings are going to take maybe not quite as massive as a step back as what you're maybe expecting, but I think that this is a 7, 8, 9 win team,
Right.
a very much average team with basically rookie quarterback, and a lot of other questions in major areas.
Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, look, I'm lower on this team, so I'm totally, if they're gonna be under 6.5 wins, they gotta miss the playoffs, right? So,
Right.
all right, going to some player props here. My favorite player prop for the Minnesota Vikings, TJ Hawkinson over 700.5 receiving yards at -110 and 5+ touchdowns at 1+150 over on DraftKings.
Yep.
I talked about it. I mean, it's year two coming off the ACL injury, ACL and MCL tear. He came back. You mentioned it. Played 10 games, 40 receptions, almost 500 yards there. So he was
Yep.
only needs another basically 200 yards, and now he's actually healthy and hopefully going to play a full complement of 17 games there.
Yep.
His past 2 seasons before coming back from the ACL, 5 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns. He had 4 and 6 in Detroit. JJ McCarthy, again, I mean, I understand he's not technically a rookie quarterback, but for all intents and purposes, he's a rookie quarterback. They
Yep.
need some safety valves over the middle. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison are going to take a lot away from the defense. They're going to have to focus on those guys. I think TJ Hawkinson is going to be a very easy option over the middle. So I like him to find him, early and often, especially in the red zone. So TJ Hawkinson is the guy I'm targeting here for the Minnesota Vikings.
I'll give you one better. What's a better safety valve than, here you go. Here's the football. Here's the
The run
football.
game, baby. The run
Hey,
game.
Aaron Jones, what better friend can a quarterback have than a seasoned veteran running back to just hand the football to?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Aaron Jones is going to have a kind of a bounce back year. I mean, he had a pretty good year last year. He ran for 1,100 yards. I don't see anywhere, besides a major injury, where he goes under 775. So I'm taking over 775.5 rushing yards at -110 for Aaron Jones. Like I said, outside of a major injury where he misses half the season or more, I think he does this. The season before that, when he was still in Green Bay, he did have some injury injuries early in the season, I believe, and ran for 650 in 11 games. So, like I said, unless he misses more than a quarter of the season, I really think that this is basically a lock.
Yeah. No, look, see, Vikings fans, we can say nice things about your team.
Sure.
But ultimately, we do think it's going to be a little bit of a rough year, but we'll see. A lot of these people are very high on JJ McCarthy. Maybe it's just, the North love there with being close to Michigan and Minneapolis over there. So, all
Mhm.
right. Let's go ahead and move on to our last team of the NFC North. But before we do that, I've got to tell you about some of our great sponsors here, starting with Fast Draft Fantasy. That's right, folks.
Ooh.
It's in the name. You want to draft faster. It's fantasy football season. It is peak fantasy football season. So you want to download Fast Draft Fantasy, and we're going to make the deal a little bit sweeter. Use promo code plus Degen Doc. That's all caps, all one word, plus Degen Doc. And it's very simple. Deposit $50, put the promo code in, and boom, get a free $50. Great thing about Fast Draft is 20 seconds to pick. No one waiting all this time for to pick. You know what guys you want. Nobody likes waiting around waiting for these scrubs to decide who they're going to pick just so they can lose. So head on over to Fast Draft today. Other thing, Fantasy Football Expo. It's the 2025 Fantasy Football Expo. It's coming up. I mean, it is just under a month away, August 8th through the 10th in beautiful Canton, Ohio at the NFL Hall of Fame. Get your tickets today at thefantasyfootballexpo.com. All right. Time for the Chicago Bears.
Go
That
Bears.
is right. Fourth, last team we're talking about here in the NFC North. The Bears. Yes, we are going into losses, additions. What were they like last year? More importantly, what are they going to be like this year? Another team with a lot of questions coming in, a lot of hype. We'll see if we think they're going to live up to that hype. Let's go ahead and look
Yep.
into these Chicago Bears here. Losses. Another team we just looked at, with the Vikings. This is another team with a lot of changeover here for the roster. We're going to pick out ones here. Keenan Allen is a free agent. DeAndre Carter is in Cleveland, their return guy. Gerald
Yep.
Everett, even though they brought in a little tight end. Offensive line is going to look a lot different. Borum, Tevin Jenkins, Matt Pryor, all gone. And then Daryl Taylor and Brian Cowart, offensive line, defensive line looks different. And the reason they let a lot of those guys go is in steps the new and shiny toy of Ben Johnson and what he's going to look like. And, look, they brought in Olamide Zaccheaus over from the Falcons. They brought in Luther Burton from Mizzou, drafted Colston Loveland from Michigan, drafted Jonah Jackson from Ohio State, and then brought over Joe Tooney, Drew Dalsman, and drafted Ozzie Tropillo from Boston College. And then brought over guys like Deo Adinjingbo, Grady Jarrett, and Shamar
Mm-hmm.
Turner coming out of Texas A&M there. A lot again of changes. Yeah. But hey, when you're 4-12 or 5-12, excuse me, coming in from last season, you got to make some changes. What do you think about all these changes that the Chicago Bears made?
Thank God that they made some changes to that offensive line because Caleb Williams was running for his life and was sacked a shit ton
I think
last
what,
year in his rookie season.
68 times or something crazy
68
like that?
times. Yeah, 68 times.
That is so poor. My
Yeah,
goodness.
by far the most sacked quarterback in the league. Second was CJ Stroud at 52.
Oh,
So
16
I'm
more? I mean,
16 more.
let's be honest, he didn't do himself a lot of favors.
He
He
didn't.
played at USC where they didn't have the best offensive lines. He had to run around and make a lot of plays. He thought he could get away with a lot. So some of them were on him, but a lot of them were not his fault, man.
The
Woo.
athletes in the NFL are a little bit different.
A little bit
And
better than Washington State and Oregon State and that Pac-12 over there.
yeah. So offensive wise, I mean, there weren't many major changes outside of the offensive line. Obviously, you lose Keenan Allen, but you bring in Burton Jr. or the third, excuse me. I think in the second round. But I think that the biggest change offensively has to be Ben Johnson and his mind. you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see how this Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams era goes. Will Ben Johnson be able to wrangle Caleb Williams in, get him into his system, allow his offensive line, this new formed offensive line, to help him out a little bit? You bring in an All-Pro and Joe Tooney. Drew Dahlman was kind of the bell of the ball when it comes to centers this past offseason.
Right.
So they couldn't have done much worse offensive line wise, and they brought in some absolute studs. Defensive wise, they brought in some meat up front in Grady Jarrett and Shamar Turner. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But yeah, defensively they were kind of mid. They're in the middle of the pack. I think they were like the 13th or 14th
Right.
best defense in the league when it comes to yards given up. So I think my biggest question is, will Ben Johnson be able to wrangle Caleb Williams in? And what is this defense going to look like? Because they weren't that great last year.
Well, as someone who was a fan of the 2007 and 2011 Giants Super Bowl runs, this makes me rock hard. I love a good beefed up line of scrimmage right there. You win in the National Football League and in leagues all across America and the world when you play the game of football. It all starts up front. As we saw last year with 68 sacks, if you don't have a solid offensive line, I don't care how many shiny toys you have, you will not do anything. And on the defensive side, you know what can cover up maybe a not so solid back seven is a great front four. And I think they brought in a lot of guys who are going to be impact players on both sides of the offensive and defensive line. So I really think that, hey, when we talk about line of scrimmage, improving the line of scrimmage, look, why don't you help me out here? My memory is a little bit hazy. Who won the Super Bowl last year?
Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay, yes, the Philadelphia Terrorists. Yes, what did they have? Do they not have one of the better, if not the best, offensive lines in the NFL?
They did, but that offensive line has been around for years.
Okay, I'm just saying, offensive line, defensive line. That is what wins you games.
Did they also not have one of the best defenses in the league?
They had pretty good defense, but hey, look, I think that starts up front. But I mean, looking at the Chicago Bears secondary, you've got Jalen Johnson, Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard, Tyreek Stevenson, and Kyler Gordon, all pretty solid players. Obviously, you want to make sure they stay healthy, but I'm okay with this defense. I think they've got the names, and I don't think they're gonna be, the monsters of the midway. I don't think they're going to be anything crazy like that. Yeah. But I do think they're going to be vastly improved, and their offense not putting them in so many bad situations is only going to help. But let's talk. Let's go, because seems like we might be on different levels with this team, which is okay. Let's talk injuries, because this is going to kind of shape some things here. I'm going to breeze through a couple of these because they're kind of minor and just to monitor. Make sure these guys are looking okay. Luther Burton, some are calling him the steal of the draft. Let's see him take some snaps first. But coming out of Mizzou, he's missed a lot of time with a soft tissue injury, hasn't been able to get a lot of reps. He's expected to be okay for training camp, good to go. Just something to monitor. Let's see what that looks like. Anytime it's soft tissue, whether it's hamstring, quad, calf, whatever, if they don't take enough time to heal properly at first, they can linger and nag. So off season is a perfect time for it because you have the time. But now we're getting into training camp. So if that comes back, that's a little concerning. Let's see. TJ Edwards and Kyler Gordon, kind of same story. Picked up a soft tissue late May, kind of limited in their participation at the end of OTAs. Both said they're going to be good by training camp. We'll see. So kind of three guys that are of importance enough to talk about, but just kind of want to make sure we monitor, make sure they're kind of good to go as projected. The two big ones are the two rookies. Let's start with Colston Loveland. He's coming off a grade 5 AC joint, and then he had a surgical repair. The surgery was January 29th of 2025. Expected to take around 4 to 6 months to recover. 7 months till week 1. However, where are we at with a rookie coming in, obviously dealing with, a fairly significant injury?
Yeah, so we've talked about how there's a difference between the college game and the NFL. And I think that's going to be where Colston Loveland is lacking the first quarter of the season or so, because that's going to basically be his preseason where rookies kind of figure out the playbook and figure out how to play with their teammates and with some of the best athletes in the world, rather than playing Purdue and Minnesota every other week. So I think Colston Loveland, AC joint wise, not a huge concern for me. Timeline wise, should be fine, but more so just adapting to that next level of football.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's the reps, it's the missed reps that he's going to get, and then that rust and getting back to it. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think he's going to be a little bit slow to start. They do have Cole Kmet, so look for maybe Cole Kmet to play some of his overs a little bit earlier in the year, because everyone's talking about the shiny new toy and Colston Loveland. It might take him a little bit longer in the first couple weeks there. Now we'll talk about a guy who definitely got concerns with this injury, Shamar Stewart. Defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. He fell in the draft because of it, and right now he's projected to play behind Jarrett and Dexter, Gervon Dexter here, so he's kind of a rotational piece. But he had a stress fracture originally before last season, bad enough to where the team decided they were going to put a rod in his shin. So a stress fracture is when the bones can't handle the stress you're applying to it, so they break. There's stress, there's kind of different levels, stress injury, then enough of it gets to a fracture, yada yada yada. So they put a rod in his shin before last season to try to strengthen and add some stability in the area. Well, unfortunately, it didn't really work, because he had to pull out of the Senior Bowl because he had these same issues, where after playing for a season, now it came back up that he kind of was having, it wasn't exactly a fracture, but it was enough to stop him to do anything for 4 to 8 weeks. So that's a bit concerning, because you can't put another rod in there. You've kind of already taken the extreme. And he just went through a college football season and wasn't able, like the shin wasn't able to handle it.
Right.
So going through an NFL longer season, I don't know how we're supposed to be optimistic here. So this is one that is a little bit rarer of an injury. In the military setting, I see it a lot more often than in kind of a typical setting. But these are like the number one predictor for a future injury is a previous injury to that body part, especially in the stress factor world. Like that, when you have that, you kind of have a red flag on you the whole time to kind of let you know. So that one's going to be interesting. I hope for his sake, as a young player, that he does well and he can have a nice long career. But medically, I have concerns. So that's really the one in terms that
longevity wise, it'll be interesting to see how often he gets on the field, how many games he's able to play. And it's one of those things, like you said, the biggest predictor of an injury is a previous injury. And so will this be just a reoccurring thing to where, he might be out of the league in 2 or 3 years? He could play for 10 or 12. It's hard to say. But yeah, I'm not expecting a ton of greatness out of Shamar Turner this upcoming season.
Yeah. And look, he's not a projected starter, so we'll see how much burn he's even going to get, but definitely a little bit concerning there given the nature of the injury.
Yep.
All right. Let's move over to the fantasy football realm really quickly.
Sure.
Any major takeaways from you? I have one, but do you have any guys that you're targeting or fading in the fantasy streets for the Chicago Bears?
Not a whole lot, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of any of the guys on the roster, at least early on in the draft. I think they have some nice pieces when it comes to DJ Moore and Romadunze, but I don't know if I would necessarily take any of them too highly.
Yeah, I'm not super high on anyone individually for this team. We'll get to it as a team as a whole. I am going to be higher on this team, but in fantasy streets, DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, Cole Kmet, Colston Loveland, like I think they're all going to contribute, but I think they're going to kind of take away from each other a bit. So I don't think there's going to be a clear guy. I mean, DJ Moore, yes, he is the alpha in that room, but you're kind of paying the price for that. So really the only thing I'm going to mention is Kyle Monangai. And when we talk about Rutgers running back drafted in the 7th round that runs very hard and had a nice career of being a tough runner. Saw this with Isaiah Pacheco and the Chiefs. There was some opportunity. DeAndre Swift had a solid year, but he didn't really. I mean, he hasn't. He's kind of.
Are you trying to say this is the second coming of Sonic and Knuckles from Detroit? Come on,
I'm
now.
just saying that don't be surprised. Probably more in a best ball setting, but or in a late rookie draft or whatever you may be. But I think Kyle Monangai coming out of Rutgers was a very solid player throughout his career at Rutgers. I still remember him running for like 200 yards against Miami in that bowl game a couple years ago.
Yeah.
This dude's a gamer, and he can be a solid running back. And they've been waiting for about 3 years for Roschon Johnson to do anything. He's been very disappointing.
No doubt.
And Swift had he had under 1,000 yards in 17 games. He only averaged 3.8 yards per carry. Like, I think there's opportunity in that backfield. And with an improved offensive line, like if Swift and Johnson aren't getting it done, I just think Kyle Monangai can be one of those sleepers that kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, hey, where did this guy come
Might
from?
pop a couple weeks.
Right. So this is not anything like, hey, go crazily overdraft. Like, you can get this guy for free if you're in a managed league. Like, this is just a waiver wire, situation. But like best ball, like last round, if you're taking a bullet on somebody, I do want to throw out Kyle Monangai because I think he's a tough physical runner. And when you're building from the offensive line and you can create some holes there, I think that he's someone that can really give you some juice. So just wanted to mention that, throw that one out there. All right, let's move on over to the money side of this. Let's make some money off this team here. Win total sitting at 8.5 wins. They were 5-12 last year, so a bit of optimism put into that number there. Over getting a nice price, about 135 over at FanDuel, plus 105 over at DK. Under anywhere from minus 160 or minus 125. So it really just depends on like what side you're on, because this is another team that the books were a little bit separated on. Make playoffs around plus 190 to plus 160. Miss playoffs minus 240 to minus 195. To win the division, anywhere from plus 550 to plus 450 over on DraftKings and FanDuel. And then NFC, anywhere from 21 to 1 to 16 to 1. And Super Bowl, also very variable, as high as 44 to 1 and as low as 30 to 1 over on ESPN Bet. So another team where the books are not agreeing, just like you and I are not. Where are you at with this team? Is there anything you're wanting to play from any of those, whether it's win total or what are we talking about?
Yep. The only thing that I feel confident with in the Bears is saying that they're going to go under 8.5 wins. I don't think the additions that they brought in are going to contribute to more than 3 wins. Whether it's Ben Johnson, the offensive line help that they got. My big question is, will Caleb Williams try to be the quarterback that he's grown up being for, the past 18, 19, 20 years?
Right.
And just scampering all over the field and making things happen, because that's not going to happen in the NFL.
Right.
At this rate. He tried it last year. He came away with 68 sacks and a 5-12 record. I don't think that Ben Johnson is going to be the incredible mastermind of an offensive coordinator that's just going to magically fix Caleb Williams. I think in general, this is a 6-7, potentially 8-win team.
Look, typically, I would say, yes, this is a lot to expect. We're going to talk about further on in this series as we get to other divisions, teams like the Panthers and the Patriots, who everyone's jumping on this bandwagon and creating a lot of this artificial hype for. Typically, it's not something I want to back. However, I am all over this team right now. I am going over 8.5 wins at plus 135. I'm going to make playoffs at plus 190. And I'm going to win the NFC North at plus 550 for the Chicago Bears. And let me tell you why. I think we're going from a situation where it was extreme incompetence and ineptitude, both in the coaching and both in the
Mhm.
offensive line. I think that like we're talking way below league average. All right, with Eberflus and not watching the film and what the hell's going on there. No one knows what's going on with the offensive line. That's whether either too injured or they just don't have the dudes to protect Caleb Williams.
Okay.
I think they've addressed that with both Ben Johnson and adding 3 very good offensive linemen to this line. I think they also beefed up the defensive line. Again, I love the fact that they're building from the line of scrimmage. They've got the weapons in, Komet, Loveland, Burden, Odunze, Moore, the running backs. They've got the guys to make this offense work. I think Ben Johnson's going to come in there. I was skeptical at first, but I think this division is also a little bit open. I'm expecting the Lions to drop back a little bit. I'm not as high
Agreed.
on the Packers. I'm very low on the Vikings. So I got to be high on somebody. And I'm going to go with the Bears there that kind of have the lower, they were the bottom last year, and yeah, absolutely. But when we look at this team last
So
year,
you're saying worst to first
worst
with a
to first.
quarterback that got broken by a Hail Mary pass.
Well, let's talk about that. The Bears, look, they're 5-12. They
Yep.
started the year 4-2 with
Yep.
great momentum.
And
And
then
then
one
that
throw broke
act of
them.
God, that divine intervention of a Hail Mary that actually won me a lot of money that game. But that tanked their season. They lost
Yeah.
like 10 in a row, like 12 in a row or something. They got to win the last game of the season.
Yeah.
Like they were 4-2, then they went to 4-12, and then they won their last game. Like that completely derailed because you had a poor culture, you had poor coaching, and you had an offensive line that was just dog shit. So,
And you're bringing in Ben Johnson, who wasn't the rah culture guy from Detroit,
but he's the
to,
mastermind.
to fix a broken quarterback that can't stay in a system.
I think it's too early to say Caleb Williams is broken. It's been a year. That was a lot of sacks. I get it. David Carr and all that stuff. Yes, it went downhill. They addressed. Look, it's like, hey, what was the problem? We brought in the offensive line, right? It's like you're going to a situation that what's going to change? Well, what's going to change is we actually have competence in the coaching and we have dudes up front. So I am pretty high on the Chicago Bears team. At the beginning of this exercise, looking at this, I did not expect myself to be this high, but I really like what they did, both from a coaching angle and from these pieces they brought around. Caleb Williams was a very universal first round pick for a reason. He's got the talent. I think that he's going to be able to put some things together here because he's going to have time to make some of those plays. I do want him to get rid of the ball a little bit faster. Absolutely. I agree with you there. But I think he's not going to have to do as much because he's going to have better players around him. And that's going to help him to just kind of find his groove. So I am on the Bears fairly heavily. I've got no player props for this team. Just going over 8.5 wins, make playoffs, division. You don't have anything either. So you're just fading them, and I'm just apparently falling in love with them. Yep. What a great way to end the show. That is good because there's parity. So, hey, look, folks, football's back, baby. This is what these division previews are going to look like. Obviously, a little bit longer of an episode because we've got 4 teams. So we're going to be rolling out, 7 more division previews. We're going to try to get these all knocked out before the end of the month here to be able to before really preseason starts kicking off too much there to make sure we're getting this out for y'all. Hey, we're hoping you're very excited because we know we are. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything, hey, you'd like for us to talk about, hey, you missed this or whatever, let us know. Comment below, like, subscribe. What do you got for the people?
I still just can't believe that you're backing the Bears.
We're moving on, man. No, look, man, I'm telling you. I don't know. Maybe it's J Mark getting in my ear, but I really like if you want to get me to be on your side, just start beefing up the line of scrimmage. So, but hey, we appreciate you folks. Thank you for listening. Look, if you're a trooper and you're still listening at minute 90 here, give us a like, comment, subscribe. Let us know, what you like, what you do. Let us know what you'd agree with. Hey, get some NFC North rivalries going in the comments. If you're a Packers Bears fan, tell us we're idiots or, hey, we agree with you, whatever. Let's get a little bit of this rivalry going under these division previews here. Again, just want to say this. Everything we give out, we ourselves have our money on. We're not going to give out any plays for the whole season that we do not have our own hard-earned money, because we realize we're not just giving out picks to talk to the wind and not bet them. We are trying to make money off the NFL while enjoying the NFL. That is why we do this show. All right, folks. You got anything for the good people before we get out of here?
No.
All right. Derek's past his bedtime. He's pissed at me. All right, folks. From the Degen Doc and Professor Locks here at IDP Plus Bets, we are out of here.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.